All right, so let me go ahead and open up this folder right here. And this is basically our parent project. So we're going to use Maven multi-module so that we can have dependencies and then let all the submodules choose which dependencies that they need to import. And we can also enforce dependencies to all microservices. So in here, what I want to do is this folder src, we're not going to need it at this point because this is the parent module. And open up the pom.xml, and in here, so we have a couple of things, so just go through it, but basically change this according to your URL if it's not. So let me just delete that and leave the properties as is. And for dependencies, so inside of dependencies, let's just get rid of this dependency inside. So we're going to have our own dependencies in a second. And then for the build and then plugin management, so you can see that we have a bunch of plugins inside. So let's also just get rid of everything. And there we go. So let me just have the empty plugins, and there we go. Now inside, let me just have the empty plugins tag, and we're going to fill this in a second. Now, the dependency that we need in here is the following. So here I'm going to say dependency management, and then within have dependencies. And the dependency that I want in here is, so dependency, so the artifact ID. So this comes from Spring Boot dependencies, and this comes from org.springframework.boot, just like so. And then choose a version. So in my case, I'm going to pick the 257. So this version right here, I'm going to show you in a second, but this I think is the latest version as I speak. So make sure that you choose the exact same version so that you have no issues. Then what I also need is to say scope and then import. So this is using the BOM, where inside of this artifact, there's a bunch of dependencies that we can use. And this is because we're not using Spring Boot as the parent project. So this is our own parent module. And then we have submodules that can use basically these dependencies inside. So if they need, for example, the Spring Boot starter web, they can just include it right here. So this is the beauty of having the dependency management. Whereas if we have dependencies in here, so dependencies, so in here, let's say that we want every single submodule to have the Lombok dependency. So here, just say Lombok, and this comes from org.project.lombok. And let's also make sure that all submodules, they have the testing artifact from Spring Boot. So here, I'm going to say Spring Boot -starter and then test. And this comes from org.springframework.boot. And there we go. So let me just put this full screen. Now, finally, because we are using Spring Boot, let's have the plugin for building the artifacts. So here, let's have a plugin, and the group ID will be com.springboot.springframework and then .boot. And then the artifact ID will be Spring Boot Maven, just like that. And also let's specify the version in here. So version, and this will come from the property. So this will be spring.boot.maven.plugin.version. And if you grab all of this and then scroll up, and inside where we have the properties, let's just paste that and then close that. And then basically what I want is to say 2.7 in here, but I just realized that this version right here is the exact same thing. So let's just take this from here and then say Spring Boot .dependencies and then version. And we can take this from here and then put it here, close that. And then inside we can say 2.5.7. And if you want, you can basically control these independently. So the Spring Boot Maven plugin as well has the exact same version. And you can see that this now is taking shape. So this should be HTTPS, and also this should be Java 17. There we go. And yeah, so this is now taking shape. So let's just basically reload the changes, and it looks like that we have an error. Oh no, that went away. But basically, if I open up Maven So this still red. So if I clean, you can see that the process terminated. So let's have a look. So it looks like that I'm missing the type inside of the dependency management. So that's fine. So inside in here, I'm missing the type. That's for sure. And I want this to be POM. So this is so that we can use all these dependencies for our sub projects. Now let's reload. There we go. So all good. And you can see that we have the dependencies right here. Everything has been resolved. If I open up dependencies, we have Lombok and starter test. So this is what we have included, right, for our sub projects. We also have plugins. And in here, let's now clean. So I just want to make sure that this runs. And there we go. So let's validate as well. And also works. So we haven't got anything to compile, but you can see that this is working. So obviously, if you want to grab this file, you can grab it under the description of this video so that you can follow along. And all you have to do is just change the URL, the name, the group ID, and the artifact, and off you go. Now, just to recap, so we have some properties, but really dependency management. So this is so that our sub projects can pick whatever dependency that they want, and you'll see this in a second. And then dependencies, this is so that all sub modules by default have these two dependencies without them explicitly imported in their pom.xml. And then we have the exact same thing for the build. So build management right here. And basically not everything will need this Spring Boot Maven plugin, and that's why it's inside of this plugin management. If you have any questions, drop me a message. Otherwise, let's move on.